Hello everyone, welcome back to OC Recovery's YouTube channel. Today I have a little bit different of a setup. I just was looking around my house thinking, where can I do a video that's not sitting at my desk or in front of my whiteboard? So I decided to pick this corner of my couch with this nice lamp behind me. So today I wanted to talk about why perspective changes is more than likely going to be the driving force in your OC recovery. On top of, don't get me wrong, exposures, moving with uncertainty is important, as we know, for a lot of cases that we see, including myself. Moving with uncertainty just lets the fear go in the background. Not for everyone. Some people can move with uncertainty and recover. People with GAD, like in the book At Last the Light by Paul David. OCD tends to be a little bit different. If you have a really serious chronically latched, maybe sensory motor or solipsism or existential or POCD or anything that's really latched because of a belief, you'll more than likely have to change your perspective. Now, remember, agreement doesn't mean acceptance. It's one of the number one things I see while people more than likely don't apply. And I don't even really like to use the word apply because it's more of a shift. The shifts aren't coming in the perspectives because you're trying to force it as a tool. And after a while, even with exposures, you don't really need to force exposures anymore. You just go towards your fears after a while and you just engage in non-avoidance behaviors and realize that that's not really the best way to live your life, because when the more that you avoid, the more you limit your life. The more you limit your life, the more OCD tends to have a field day. So this might be a little bit longer of a video. I'm not sure yet. I want to talk about each one of my perspective journeys with unconditional self, unconditional other, and unconditional life. So I wanted to start with unconditional self-acceptance, the most recent one I've been working on. Now, I skipped the myth of self-esteem on the reading list. I didn't think it applied to me. When I read it, I just finished it. It is a tough read, very philosophical. It was more than likely, in my opinion, to me, the most applicable book on the reading list. It has the most depth and the most meaning. How to Stubbornly Refuse helped me set up how to actually dispute my irrational beliefs, which is, it's more of a blueprint with using dibs, disputing your belief systems. But the myth of self-esteem really dove into philosophical outlooks with conditional acceptance, aka self-esteem, self-love, self-respect, all these things you have to do to boost yourself up, versus unconditional self-acceptance, which is not very common in human beings because naturally we are geared towards thinking and more overgeneralizations, black and white thinkings and stuff like that, which tend to get us in trouble in the long term, especially with OCD sufferers. So let's look at conditional self-acceptance, okay? And why unconditional self-acceptance was so important for myself. Now, I was pretty heavily involved in the fitness industry. I read research daily for years. I have a lot of friends that compete, and I think it's an amazing thing. I think what happens is, the problem that happens, especially in the fitness industry, is they see bodybuilding as life. Bodybuilding is life, gains are life. This isn't true at all. So you are just a person who lifts weights. You literally are picking weights up and putting them back down and building muscle on your body. That is the only thing you're doing in the reality of life. You're not a better person than anyone else. You're not smarter than anyone else in the grand scheme. So when people say stuff conditionally for self-acceptance, they'll say, well, that person's a genius. Albert Ellis broke this down perfectly at the back end of the myth of self-esteem. Albert Einstein was a genius. Well, not really. He was just a very good person in physics and inventing and all these other things. He might have sucked at compassion and empathy. So to say that you're better than someone at something is a very conditional response, because that person might have better father characteristic traits or mother characteristic traits. They might be better at patience and compassion. They might not be the best writer. They might be good at socializing. They might not like to read, but they might be good at building stuff. It's too black and white, and it really gets us into trouble. You are just a human, alive today, on this rock, with perspectives that drive or do not drive your emotional disturbances. Life is actually quite that simple, but it's much more complex to start changing our belief systems. So your self-worth is not on the way you look. Your self-worth is not on what you wear. Now, you can build muscle, you can go to the gym, you could do all of these things, but you don't absolutely dire need it the way that most people think. Most people will think if they maybe derail a meal or something, their entire life is ruined, because bodybuilding and fitness is very much based around perfectionism. So I like running templates for a hypertrophy company called Renaissance Periodization. Now, there's other things that I understand scientifically about rest times and all these other little minute details that don't really matter. I don't tend to partake in those much anymore because it becomes too much. It just becomes too black and white and perfectionistic. Maybe not for everyone, but for myself, this was a major problem. Now, social media is the bane of conditional acceptance and self-esteem. Not feeling too good? Go post a picture on social media. Get those likes going up. Boom, boom, boom. Feel great. Go about your day. Does this mean it's not, you don't need, you can't post pictures or you can't do challenges? Of course, that's not what I'm saying. But the reason behind it is usually the driving factor of your emotional disturbance. And when you actually start to accept yourself conditionally, you realize you don't need to do stuff like that. You don't have to take videos everywhere you go to put on social media. It's a really slippery slope. Jordan Peterson, a world-renowned psychologist from Toronto, I've read his books, 12 Rules of Life. I haven't read Maps for Meaning, I think was his first book. I haven't read that one, which I will. But social media and all these dating apps are moving so far in advance. Our neocortex, the area of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, which does executive decisions, the newest area of our brain has not caught up, not even fucking close to caught up to the way that technology and all this stuff is moving. Now, it's not that it's inherently bad, but it will need some balancing, and you'll have to work on your belief systems. We get a lot of, Rob did the post today talking about why your activating event is not the cause of your emotional disturbance. So in the Sigmund Freud method, okay, also basically looked at as the godfather of psychoanalysis. I think he lived, whatever it was, 1867 to 1935. So he was big with the id, the ego, and the superego, okay? I can't remember what each one stands for, but basically the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious. And it's really cool stuff when you look at it, but at the time with psychoanalysis and these other thought processes that maybe weren't in line with cognitive behavioral changes and stuff like that from more Albert Ellis or Carl Jung or maybe logotherapy has aspects in it with Viktor Frankl and obviously Albert Ellis with REBT going into CBT. So they really thought for a while that, you know, these things in your life cold-heartedly shaped who you are. And I agree with a lot of that. It obviously does. As a child, you don't have the context for life. And if you're surrounded by a certain environment, you get predisposed to that environment. Look at gang members. Look at other people who grow up around certain type of cultures and they end up that way in certain respects. So there's definitely truth to that. But what happens is when you get older and have context to life, the number one thing driving the cycle is the way you're seeing things right now. So your belief, what you're holding currently, is the driving factor for your needed self-esteem, why people think, and self-esteem is everywhere. I read tons of psychology. I listen to tons of Stoicism podcasts. And there's a lot of self-esteem and self-respect mentioned in Stoicism, mentioned in Epicureanism, mentioned in pessimism, mentioned in Carl Jung, and even Viktor Frankl. And really the only couple people that look at self-esteem are the cognitive behavioral therapists that are more in line with Aaron Beck and more in line with Albert Ellis's teachings when it comes to actual unconditional self-acceptance. Now, there's a lot of people out there currently who say stuff like REBT or CBT is not, they'll say this, REBT is not scientific for OCD recovery. Well, that's incorrect entirely, and I'll tell you why. REBT is the precursor to CBT. They're very much similar in their own ways. Very, 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 very similar, and they work together, Aaron Beck and Albert Ellis. So that in itself is not true. Also, at the end of the myth of self-esteem, there is a few paragraphs talking about why this book is good for obsessive compulsive disorder. It is stated in the book. In the book, we know scientifically in empirical data that people with depression, which is based usually off of conditional life acceptance, and at times conditional other acceptance. We see cases of this with Hitler, mainly conditional life, mainly conditional self. Those people have more rational beliefs than others. When they start to change their beliefs, 80 to 90% of the subjects used in some of these longitudinal studies are actually getting better. So anyone telling you that REBT or CBT is not scientific, which is completely ludicrous in its own way, and it's not used for OCD, is wrong. It's completely wrong in every sense. Stoicism, which has been around for a couple thousand years, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca the Younger, Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, that actually wasn't even supposed to be published, is an absolutely tremendous book. These are amazing. These are terrific writings, even knowing back then must have been a simpler life in ways, but also a harder life in ways, with poverty, sick and disease, and no real medicine and stuff like that, and draining your blood with humors. But, this was the basis. So they knew this thousands of years ago. These principles are still alive today. There are many philosophical principles that are outdated or not used, but these are the basis for cognitive behavioral changes in all of the literature, the formations of these psychotherapeutic approaches used in psychotherapy. They are based off of Greco-Roman philosophies in the sense. So in the premise. So to say that they're not scientific is unfounded. To say that they're not used for OCD is completely irrational. They're used for belief systems, which is the driving factor, as we see, with many people with obsessive compulsive disorder. So I had to start accepting myself for who I was if I didn't start accepting myself for who I was. And I've truly been working on unconditional self-acceptance for only about half a year. I've been working on OCD recovery for about 17 months. Been working on recovery half-assed for 2 years, but really about a year and a half. The reason I've made the progress I've made, the reason I went from the mental hospital, suicidal, getting close to suicide attempts, suicide ideations all day long, the reason why I was depressed was strictly based off my perspectives, heightening the response of how I was seeing things. Even if I went back to suffering with somatic OCD right now, I could still do everything I wanted to do. This is why I talk about building lifestyle structures is so important. Rob mentioned this in his IGTV the other day. Like, I just always talk with my hands. That's the Italian in me. Hey, you doing? Whoa. It's my father in me. So there we go. Sigmund Freud and other, coming from your parents has a lot of covert conditional responses built into the subconscious and the unconscious. So definitely really cool stuff to look at. The other thing I had to work on with unconditional self-acceptance was that maybe I was wrong. I had to start reading things I didn't want to read. Rob really knew that was what I was about. He was like, you're arrogant. He could talk to me straight. Not everyone responds this way, but he'd be like, you're arrogant. You're being a fuck. He didn't use his exact words, but, I knew what he was saying. He's like, you think you know everything, and he was correct. He knew that I responded well to that in a lot of ways. Not everyone does. But I did personally. It was a big wake-up call for me, and I said to myself, well, fuck. I got to start looking at stuff. There was stuff I was bashing, so I would bash Sigmund Freud without even looking at his work. This is what so many people do because they're so afraid to be wrong because we have conditional self-acceptance. So that was the premise of that. You can accept yourself conditionally, self-acceptance unconditionally, while not liking certain features. This is the premise of body dysmorphic disorder, cognitive behavioral therapy being the main form of approach, changing your belief system. Say you don't look like the way your arm looks, you have a body dysmorphic fear of the way your elbow, you might have a protruded elbow. I'm using a random example. You work at realizing you don't have to like it, but you can accept it and go about your life. So this is the same thing with accepting yourself. We don't need self-esteem. There's a reason why the book is called The Myth of Self-Esteem. Now, let's transition over to unconditional other acceptance. What do we have? 13 minutes. This is a super, excuse me, a super important thing to talk about. So, unconditional other acceptance was extremely difficult for me. Maybe for a couple reasons. There's a lot of yelling in my house. I came from a loud family. We talk fast. I'm from New Jersey. From outside Manhattan, not too far. The stereotypical maybe mindset of your typical Northeastern American Italian, and it was just not good. So I was bred to think in these very black and white, fuck that guy, and all this other nonsensical bullshit that you hear in my area that I come from. So road rage was the main thing I had to work on. So I would get so mad on the road. I've gotten out of the car. I've almost gotten into fights. I've screamed at people. I've almost chased people. I've had people throw stuff at me. I've had people almost pull a weapon on me in Florida. It was a whole entire crazy experience, just the whole thing. This all was based off of the way I saw life, conditional life acceptance, but primarily, conditional other acceptance. I believed cold-heartedly that things needed to go my way. They must not do that to me. I deserve respect. Respect is by far One of the biggest reasons why people get in trouble. Look at gang members. Let's take gang members. Go into a prison. Watch a prison documentary. Watch someone who's gone through rehabilitation but maybe murdered 3 people and they ain't getting out. They might be on death row. They believe, you could see it in the gangs, I deserve respect. Says who? You could prefer respect, but you don't deserve respect. You don't need respect. Respect is one of my favorite quotes is, one is not mine, and this has nothing to do with this, but one of the worst words in the human dictionary is tomorrow for putting things off. Just start today. That's one of the biggest philosophical things. Everything I'm talking about right now, just start working on it today. You don't have to wait till tomorrow. Work on it now when you're uncomfortable. But one of my favorite things to say, this is mine, didn't get this from somewhere. We tend to get a lot of quotes from other people. But respect is one of the #1 things that gets people into trouble. Needing it, because there's not preferring it. You need respect. Huge in gangs, like I said, huge in fights. You disrespected me. You should have never done that. Now, I'm not saying if someone comes at you, punches you in the face, or hits you upside the head with a tire iron, you're not going to be mad. You might act irrational in the moment. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is this. Respect is not needed. I'll say it again. Respect is not needed. No one needs to respect you. We would prefer it. This is why we talk about agreement doesn't mean acceptance so much. Humans, we think in these black and white terms. You must respect me. You must do what I say. That shouldn't happen to me. But there's no universal law saying these things should not happen to you. And when you believe that they should not happen to you, you get yourself into trouble. You really get yourself into trouble. So here's how I had to go about it. I would say, these people were riding my ass. They're going to ride my ass. People are going to ride your ass. People are going to cut you off. People are going to do all. We don't know what the fuck is going on in those people's lives. That person could have just lost a father. Maybe their kid died last week. I went to a funeral on Friday of a friend of ours whose son's passed at 22. You have no idea what is going on in people's lives, okay? And it doesn't matter. That what matters is your response. You cannot change people. The more you think you have to prove someone wrong, you have conditional other acceptance. I will say that again. Proving someone wrong at the premise is based off of conditional other acceptance. Proving someone wrong is based off of conditional other acceptance. This is so misunderstood. Same with respect. Same with self-respect and self-esteem for conditional self-acceptance and conditional other acceptance. You must respect me in order for me to accept you. That doesn't even make sense. It's all your belief system. Your belief system right now, your belief about other people, them shooting them and auditing them, and they must not do that. The boss is always a great example. You go to work, your boss shits on you, they should not do that. You know what? I didn't like the way they did it. I can always try to explain my point. They don't want to listen to me, they don't listen to me. They fire me, they fire me. If the whole office laughs at me, it's uncomfortable and frustrating, they laugh at me. You don't need to prove anybody wrong. The world is in a proving each other wrong match at all times. That is the basis of fights. The basis of fights, for the most part. We're not talking about overthrown dictatorships. We're talking about most little fights. Cars, verbal attacks, all this stuff is based off of conditional other acceptance. It is the absolute truth. This was huge for me. Anger. There's some philosophies out there that say anger is good. Don't agree with it. Anger, I like Albert Ellis's anger books. There's points and times where anger might be used in certain ways, maybe in a sporting match or a dictatorship being overthrown or World War III, but the majority of anger beliefs, and anger, yes, is a natural emotion. Doesn't mean it's healthy. Just because something is natural does not mean it's healthy. People do not want to let go of anger. Anger does not get you what you want 99.9 infinite amount of the time. I'm a living example of that. You don't need it. That is absolutely vital to talk about. Can't overlook that. And okay, let's talk about conditional life acceptance. Now, conditional life acceptance is kind of, to me, the umbrella of conditional self and conditional other. So I put conditional other, conditional self, and conditional life. Like if there's a triangle, I put conditional life up top. Because if you have conditional life acceptance, you're more than likely going to have conditions on yourself, condition on other people. They're all entangled in their own ways, but we have OCD. We have a disorder. We live in a terrific time to have OCD. A outstandingly good time to have OCD. Even 20 years ago, you were fucked. Look at that smile on my face. You were absolutely in big trouble, okay? You were coasting. Rob coined that term, coasting, and you probably had some good moments, but might have been chronic anxiety, chronic shame, chronic guilt. We still didn't really understand how much changing your perspectives dealt into OCD. I always joke with Rob, and I say to him, what was it like trying to figure this out on your own? And he said to me the other day, he was like, it was really lonely. I was like, yeah, I would have had like 1,800 holes in my wall. Like, you know, because of my conditional life acceptance. So we have OCD. We live in a great time. We know what works anecdotally. We know what works in the research. Okay, again, everything I talked about RBT, CBT not being scientific or OCD, it's absolute garbage. You can talk to anyone at the Albert Ellis Institute in New York. You can talk to anyone that understands cognitive behavioral therapy or practices those things. You can talk to anyone who knows how to change philosophical beliefs based off Stoicism or any other Greco-Roman philosophies. The beliefs we have now are the primary factor. Here's the one I always use. You're on a train. Or you're about to go on the train. Person behind you is poking you in the back. I got this from Albert Ellis. Poking you in the back. Poking you in the back. You're pissed off. You are so angry. You are so incredibly angry. You turn around to freak out. That person's blind. Wait, what? That person's blind. You are instantly in maybe shame, guilt, sorrow. The event did not change. The activating events, whether it's a people, situation, things that happen, do matter. They do matter. That's not what we're saying. People are like, you're completely ignoring the activating event, the person, the other. No, we're not. That's not true. We're just saying your belief is driving the cycle home when you have context for life and you're starting to understand these things. Milo and Daisy are surrounding me right now. I don't know what they're up to. So it's really important to talk about this, okay? So the self-pity route doesn't work. I've been there, not too bad, but I know people have been there. Sadie's been there. I think Kirsty's talked about it. Other people have talked about it. It doesn't get us anywhere. You know, we have OCD. We don't like having OCD. What can we do to get better from OCD? We have to do certain things. We have to work on our beliefs. We have to go towards our fears. We have to move with uncertainty. We have to get better. We have to get better at facing discomfort. We have to wear anxiety like an uncomfortable coat. Time and patience. We can't force acceptance. There's so many little factors in the journey that affect people in different ways. But in the core of OCD, if the apple in my hand, this is an apple. I'm just saying this is the imaginary apple. Inside that core, inside the earth, the core, inside the crust, is the belief you're holding currently. Okay? If you saw how I was 19 months ago, November of 2019, so 23 months ago, I was in the mental hospital. Okay? Rob always wants to, not everyone ends up in the mental hospital. I was highly scared. I didn't know what was going on. I was freaking out. I went to a mental hospital because they didn't know what to do with me. Most people do not end up in a mental hospital. I'm trying to give you hope of where I came, okay? Rob and I might not always agree on everything, but we agree on the perspective shifts necessary for OCD recovery, okay? You view the world, your perception shapes your reality. This cannot be overlooked. We know this. Here she is. She's over here hanging. I'll show her at the end. So you got to work on your beliefs. It takes time. These beliefs you've held, we've been so conditioned to think in overgeneralization, so conditioned to link, I can't stand it. That must not happen to me. My life is terrible. All this stuff. Work through discomfort. Show yourself you can do things while feeling like shit. Okay? This is now turning into a motivational video. Gary Vaynerchuk went to my high school. That's a funny story right there. And one of my buddy's older brother is actually his wine library director now, which I found out a year and a half ago before I put away video games, which is a really cool story. So, you know, it's the truth. We need motivation. We need hope. You have to, but I want you to see my story. I want you to see the pits of my OCD. I was in a mental hospital. I was playing video games 100 hours a week, didn't think I could stand my sensation. I was depressed. I almost committed suicide. They wanted to put me on medications against my will. The one guy said to me, just take the medications and you'll go home. I'm like, I'm good. I'm not against medications, but, you know, I have a very addictive personality, okay? I'm just telling you straight out, you know, I start taking Xanax, I'll be cutting and snorting them in the bathroom. You know, when I had my kidney stone surgery, I told the doctor, I was in so much pain. I said, do not give me hydrocodone. I will snort them. I'm telling you this upright, I will, okay? gave them to me anyway. My wife had to give them to me. I was going in their purse at night and taking them. Okay? My addictive behaviors. I had other addiction stuff I'm sober from now. Okay? That wasn't the only thing. Okay? So many things in my life were adversities. Not everything. I've had a good background. My family has money. You know, not millions of dollars and millions, but I come from a safe background in that regard. I have a mom I could talk to every day. My dad passed away, but I still had a father. How many people don't have fathers? Look at gang members. There's no father figures in a lot of these people's lives. Neither of my family members were gangs. I have a sister who I love. She's an attorney. She's absolutely great. I have an amazing wife. I have these 2 dogs that just do not leave me alone. And I work for Rob. I get to help you. I have so many things to be thankful for in my life. So many things. I have terrific moderators to talk to when I'm feeling bad. I have, not in a reassurance manner, but, you know, when that happens, which is a lot less than it used to be. A lot less. I've come a long way. I had to work on my beliefs on everything. I had to face discomfort. I had to get up and get it fucking done. Okay? Get my, not crazy, restrictive, you know, 6 a.m., 10 o'clock at night. No, I've gotten crazy with that as well. I tried to force recovery. We all are going to force recovery. Disputing has become compulsive for me. Of course it's going to become compulsive at one point. That's what people don't get. When you find something that works, you say, naturally, holy shit, this works. What do I do now? Let's force it to get better sooner. Humans love all or nothing thinking. Black and white. Go all in. 75 hard challenge. Do this, do that. It doesn't work that way. Balance and moderation is the way. Even though I'm hyped up right now, this isn't how I am all day anymore. This is how I used to be all day long. I had to balance my caffeine usage. I had to balance the gym. I had to balance my hiking. I had to balance my swearing. I had to balance my, I don't know, anything you could be unbalanced with. I was being unbalanced with. So I've come a long way. I'm a lot calmer. I'm a lot happier. And remember, happiness is a moving target, so don't get too hell-bent on chasing happiness. My life is exactly where it is. Whatever happens, happens. If things change, things change. Work on your beliefs. Face your fears. Move with uncertainty. Read the books on the reading list. It's not, these are other books. I've read 100 books in the last 3 years. There's plenty of books to read. Maybe not 100, maybe 75. But I've read a lot of books. There's things you can do to get yourself better. You're not going to feel better right away. It's going to take you a few months. When I started working on the conditional self-acceptance with the bodybuilding stuff, Rob was like, remember, you haven't worked on this fear before. You're going to feel like shit for a while, you know, even though you know a lot. I was like, oh, no. But it wasn't that bad. I still did stuff. I still started the business a year and a half ago, almost a year ago, and did all these things. So don't give up. There's hope. I'm making this video. Usually my videos are 15 minutes. I knew this was going to be a long one. As I was just scrubbing my tub because it was black and Erica was yelling at me, I was having a little bit of unconditional other acceptance with Erica. No, I'm just joking. But I had to do all these things. I was scrubbing my tub thinking, I did my hike today, sitting up in the mountains thinking, how am I going to talk about this perspective video? What am I going to share? Am I going to talk about motivation? Am I going to talk about changing beliefs and all these different things? Building low frustration tolerance is key. Please watch my videos on that. Humans are pitiful with low frustration tolerance. You will more than likely, in my opinion, need to do things feeling like garbage for quite some time. And that shows yourself that you could do it. Even if you didn't get better for a long time, you can still do it. So thank you so much for watching this video. Let me just show you. Oh, her eyes are just like. All right. What are you doing over there? So don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Look at Milo. Ooh, I got the tripod on here. Look at him. Milo, you cutie right there. So there's hope. Changing beliefs was key for me. Yeah, you know, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was definitely probably the longest one I've ever done. Things will keep going. I'm still here to make videos. If you have any questions down below, any concerns, comments, anything you want to know, feel free to ask. Thank you so much. Have a great day.